We'll just note who the land is.
We'll start the meeting. So this is Thames Community Board meeting, 8th of July. Hi, Robin. Can you hear us? You got your audio?
Thank you. Yeah.
You're there. Nice to see you. You look like you're in a cosy spot there.
Yes, and it's very cold and rainy in Ekatahuna today.
Yeah. Situation normal around New Zealand, I think.
Yeah.
So are there any apologies?
Sally.
Is Sally not coming?
Yes, she is not coming.
Okay, thanks. Mover and seconder for those apologies?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Public forum. Barbara and Angela Marty. Go ahead. Would you like to come forward?
Do you want to? Yes. Thank you. Is here okay?
Absolutely okay. That's the spot to sit.
I feel like I'm amongst friends.
Well, that makes you feel at ease, doesn't it, Barbara?
Yes, it does actually.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'm starting. I'll start with sleep, then I'll sit down. Tēnā koutou katoa. Ko tamata te maunga. Ko toki toki te awa. Ko tamata a Maui te moana. I whana mai e te mātua Maui. I tipuni I Hiratonga. E nai, kei hotorini, aho e noho ana, ko Barbara Tig, aho, tēnā koutou katoa.
Very nice. Good.
I
could respond in Greek.
I
could respond in Greek.
Cool. Yes, I do feel like I'm amongst friends. I've come to talk about the proposed 90% budget cut to the Thames Library, and I am a Thames Library user for just on 40 years. So yes, and Ursula Martin will just introduce herself as well.
Yeah. Hi, Ursula Marty, Andrea Gill for some people. Yeah, I moved to Thames from Australia 24 years ago, and a lot of that time I've been living in Grahamstown. I used to work in libraries in Australia, so my first port of call when I came to Thames was the library, and I thought, oh, what a lovely library, and I still think it's a lovely library. And like Barbara, yeah, I guess I was moved to respond to the proposed 90% cut, because it seemed like something that shouldn't go unremarked and shouldn't go unobstructed.
No, thank you.
So first of all, I want to thank you for your support, because I know that you requested to look at options to reinstate a proportion of the book budget in a cost-neutral manner, and I know that you've got that, and that's fantastic. Anyhow, I just thought I'd make a few comments and yeah, and then see where to from here really. So we're two avid library users and we're neighbours. So we got together after hearing a lot of discussion in the community about the proposed one-year cut to book budgets. So as some of you know, because you saw me downtown, we created a petition. And the focus of this petition was to create discussion and debate about the library and to develop an awareness of the proposed cuts. It was not so much aimed at getting heaps of signatures. However, we are pleased to report that we're approximately 1,000 signatures. And with not too much effort, we could get heaps more if we had more people going around from both the paper and the online versions combined. Community interest is high and the proposal is indeed controversial. Feedback from the library staff, who are delighted that there is now a public awareness and discussion about this, has been that many users have been asking about the cuts and indeed asking where they can go and sign the petition. The Thames Library has close to 7,000 members. So on the online, you're able to make comments on the online petition, and I've just listed a few of them. One person says, I've been a member of the Thames Library for many years. It is my lifeline. Another person, the library is an important part of the community for all ages. Libraries do much for public mental and social well-being. The library is truly an essential service. A modest cut could be acceptable, but a 90% cut to book purchasing is draconian and smacks of short-sighted political decisions designed to damage some of our social cohesion. I'll just make a few points and ask you about where to from here. Some people say, well, the library's got heaps of books. Why new books? You know, why do you want new books? Because it's just the new book budget that's been cut. The summary of the 10-year plan states that libraries foster growth and that they provide a wide range of library stock, including up-to-date material. A 90% reduction will not allow for any new material. The long-term plan set the number of new books added at a minimum of 300 new books per 1,000 population. Rental fees from adult fiction, which is one of the most popular new books, and they say new is for a year, so they charge a rental for new books, new novels, new fiction for 1 year. So rental fees and DVDs for that generated revenue of $20,700. That's in the previous year. Presumably some of this revenue will be lost. Many of our older community can only read large print books, and we've got a high elderly population here. It's a specialised collection and a lot smaller collection, and so it just needs to be kept up to date. You can't, I know some people that read large print who've read them all in there, so they need to be replacing, all that interests them anyhow. We've got quite a few families here that homeschool their children, and they rely on up-to-date books. Just before lockdown, people clamoured to stock up. I think just before lockdown, something like 6,600 books went out of the library in the few days before, in the 2 or 3 days. They set there was no time frame for the books to be returned. So, they just clamoured to stock up. And the most popular books are fiction. And requests to purchase new fiction are made frequently. I know I make enough requests myself. People hear reviews on the radio, whatever, and request a new book. And, it's been wonderful because it'll often come. Now, there was a survey of 23 other New Zealand libraries post-COVID, and only 4 have had cuts. One had an increase, 2 cuts were 10%, one was 25%, and one was 30%. That just shows you what's there. TCDC libraries have the lowest per dwelling, and this is approximate per ratepayer, and the second lowest per capita behind Southland District Council. So that's, we don't overspend on our libraries. We've got the second lowest per capita. I could continue with lots of information about our demographics, such thing as low socio-economic, low literacy levels, high elderly population who don't necessarily use online. The online services of the Thames Library count for 1% of usage. And also then there's also the important issue of the lack of consultation when this plan was made. It was a lack of the library staff weren't consulted, you weren't consulted, neither was the public consulted. And yet, in the sections which I could find here is a statement which says that when a significant cut is going to be made to a service, there is a requirement to consult. Now, that has not happened here. Another thing that I didn't imagine, and speaking to people out there who have been discussing this, I didn't imagine library books were classed as capital projects. And so when people voted to lower their rates, they were not thinking about the fact that there was going to be a cut to new books in the library. I think that's enough. Yes. So thanks for your support again, and I would like to, we intend to go to the TCDC meeting, but on the 4th of August when this will be discussed, but I also think that they need challenging on the lack of consultation, and I don't know whether that's your job or not. Yeah, so we'd just like to know where to from here, because we know we're getting more. We don't think, the petition has been in Mercury Bay and Tairua, but there's definitely not as much action going on over there. Yeah, I don't know. I know that you've got money for the Thames Library, and thank you for that, but yeah. You know, somehow it's got to be made a real issue because it's huge. There is a lot of discussion about it out there. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. There might be some questions that the board would like to ask. Usually, Martin, did you want to make any further comment about?
No, I think that pretty much covers it, although just from another perspective, yeah, I guess the library provides a lot of backup service to the schools.
Yeah.
So that provides a lot of additional support to schools, which they rely on. And yes, they have their own funding, their own budgets, but yeah, it's part of the fabric. And it's not just, yeah.
So what I can say is that people are sympathetic to me, in other words, understand that in fact libraries do play an important role, especially for Thames in our community, and for the reasons that you might have highlighted, Barbara. And yes, we were a little bit disappointed about the fact that there wasn't more consultation. This could have been managed a little bit better. At no point do I blame the councillors, because they had a response that was really important in terms of getting a rate increase from 9.98% down below 5%, so they did very well there. I just felt library books shouldn't have been part of that equation or discussion in terms of the CapEx requirement for library books for Thames. However, Thames Community Board is responding in ways that it can, and it's trying to find cost-neutral ways of being able to reinstate some of the library budget. So we're all in consensus relating to that. I'm sure we are. It might be a point when you actually present to TCDC is that a component of the library budget is district. About 20% of it's district. I think it's 20 or 30%. I'll need to confirm what that is. It may be sufficient under these circumstances to ask them whether in fact they could reinstate at least that 20 or district component relating to the Thames Library, because other areas have experienced huge cuts, and how they're going to function is another story, and they're going to rely on Thames Library. So if they could consider reinstating 20 or 30% in a cost-neutral way, they could relitigate their annual plans, but they might be able to revise some areas where they might be able to find some dollars in relationship to reinstating 20 or 30% of that Thames Library budget. That would be a good question to ask, just see what they can come up with. I mean, they might not be able to come up with anything, but it's worth a try. So, are there any other questions? Clarification from the board you'd like to ask?
No, I just want to thank you for
supporting Thames Library. It's been quite, and I know Robin and probably all the other councillors and community board members have had a significant quantity of correspondence regarding it. So, yeah, thank you.
It's great to have this forum to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well researched, Barbara.
Claudia?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. So I know most of you. So my name is Corbinian Purshall. I've been a resident of the Kauranga Valley on and off for the last 24 years. And so I'm not sure how much time I have. I know there's a few more people after me. Just like to acknowledge Barbara and Dalamati said, I fully support that. But what I'm here for today is for a very local matter as a resident of the Kauranga Valley. I do know that the council has quite a few budget restrictions now on capital expenditure, but what I'm suggesting would be very cost effective, quite cheap, and it is really about keeping everybody on the road, safe. And then the second one is keeping pedestrians and cyclists safe on the Kauranga Valley Road. So the first part would be really easy, would incur probably a few $100s cost, plus some cost in advertising to consult with the public, and that would be to lower the speed limit on Kauranga Valley Road. It currently is at 80 kilometres an hour from the racecourse right up until the beginning of the dock controlled road, where it goes to 50 kilometres an hour. Now, anybody who's been up the Kauranga Valley knows that the road is actually quite narrow, that the population, if you've lived here in the area for a while, has increased, and there is more traffic here. So I can't give you numbers, but it is significantly busier than it was when I was in high school in the 1990s. It is definitely busier, and there is actually a bit of a rush hour in the morning and in the evening, and especially in the morning with emphasis on the rush. And you see people really doing 80 kilometres an hour in many places. It's just not safe. And they, I think most people consider themselves to be above average drivers, but you know, out there on that road, I allow myself to question that. There's a few places where it's positively dangerous, and where people just overestimate their abilities, and it is just a little bit too fast. And also people who are law-abiding, they might just see, okay, this is an 80 kilometres an hour road, I better try to go at 80. And in many places, it is just not safe. And I think 60 kilometres an hour, you'll still get people going at 70 in some places on the straight parts, but there's less temptation, put it that way, to speed. And if you remember any of those high school math or physics exercises where you have to calculate the impact of a vehicle hitting something at 60 kilometres an hour versus 80, you might remember that the impact force is significantly higher. And at 60, it would be a compromise. It is not in the suburbs, but it is densely enough populated there to warrant 60 kilometres an hour. It is a little bit faster. You know, if you get hit at 60 by a vehicle, you're still going to be, very badly injured, but your chances of survival are infinitely higher than at 80. And so the costs involved in that would be presumably consulting with the public, advertising for it. But in the nitty-gritty of it would be really just replacing the signs, the speed limit signs, maybe painting it on the roadway in a few places. And possibly just adding some signs, new speed limit. Now, this would benefit everyone. Now, the other part of what I mentioned is the safety of cyclists and pedestrians, especially. And that is especially important in summer, because everyone here knows how popular the swing bridge swimming hole is. And on summer afternoons, you get lots of children from the town walking along the road because there is simply no way they can get there safely. And in many places, there is just no shoulder or anything along the side of the road. There's one particularly bad stretch, which is, I don't know the address, but it's that area where there is a very bad-looking tin fence with some old trailers, truck and trailers. And I don't actually know if that's privately owned or if it's council controlled or if it's Māori land.
Private.
It is privately owned, yeah. So in that area there are deep trenches for drainage, which are necessary, but there is no way for children to walk safely. And I think in early 2017, one of the other residents of the valley, Nancy Svan, wrote to council, the previous council, after a child was struck. So, and for that, I propose a cycle and footpath parallel to the road from the racecourse to the swing bridge. I'm not talking about the bigger cycle and walking trail all the way up the valley, but just those 1.5 kilometres. And I think that that may be delayed, of course, due to the budget situation, what it is, but I think in many places it would be quite cost effective and would have a lot of support.
Thanks, Corbin. I mean, you raised an issue. I've lived in Canberra, God, that's 1983, I think.
Yep.
You raised an issue that there's not many sections of that road where you can do 80 k's.
No.
You can have anything in the safe form, and the volume of recreational use up there is increased tenfold, and especially with horses and cycling and all sorts of things that go on up there now. Lots of people cycle up for recreation down to the dock centre and back. So you've raised some very, very valid points. I know there's a walk and cycle strategy that was done. Rick Balfour did it.
Yes.
About 5 years ago, talking about a loop walk, which went from basically from the racecourse to the swing bridge. Somehow it may have crossed the river somehow and looped around. It's going to be a virtual loop walk. Yep. Make that safer. So you've raised some very pertinent questions in terms of the kids on the road all the time during the swimming season. We've seen it, and it's
scary.
It's scary in terms of the danger really there. So are there any further comments?
Yeah, I was just trying to remember, a while, might have been quite some number of years ago, I had the feeling that was open, it was open road speed limit, and then it was changed to 80?
Yes. Yeah.
Was that right?
I don't remember when it was changed, but there used to be a white sign, with the black crossbar, so open road. And I don't think that the speeds have increased since then, but it's, well, I mean, you can't really do any more than 80 on the road. But it's, I think the messaging, put it that way, is wrong to have an 80k an hour. So. And
I think also that corner, the corner before, the last sort of big corner before the Kauranga Hall. I know there's been a number of cars have gone around that corner in the middle of winter because it just doesn't get any sun. And they've either gone over the side down to Tomo and Sarah's driveway or into the bank on the other side, just because it gets so slippery. It's over winter as well. So.
All right. No, and I don't know what we can look at.
So through the chair, I think we've probably covered off that any changes to speed limits need to go through a consultation process and a bylaw change. The other comment I'd make, and I make this all the time, is that that it's the speed environment that usually sets the speed. So the speed signs will have some impact, but generally if the road feels like a 60k road, people will drive at 60 k's, then you always get some people with speed. And if the road feels like a 100k road, they'll drive at 100. So the example I can often give is, if we put up some signs on the American plains that, 60k limit, people are still going to drive at 100, because it feels it's wide open, and drive fast. But totally support what you're saying. The Coromandel Valley road is quite windy and narrow, so it suits a lower speed environment. So again, it's about trying to set the speed limit to the right speed environment.
Sure.
And there's other things you can do to kind of change that, change the feel of the environment. With, threshold signs, those kind of things you see when you enter towns, those signs that are quite close to the edge of the road, so that feeling of closeness slows people down, whereas if it's wide open, people drive a lot faster. So there are things that can be done to try and slow things down if needed in certain areas. So,
Yeah, so is there something Thames Community Board would do to facilitate?
Yeah, so what my advice to the community board request that staff go away and consider a bylaw change. And do the work to look at how we make that change to the speed limit, and then bring that back to the community board and the council to go through that process. It needs to go through council, actually, bylaw change.
We put that on our work program, Aaron?
We can put it on the action schedule. I'll put it on that one schedule.
Okay.
At the same time, would it be, so through the chair, would it be initial exploration of footpath consideration with the race course to Swindon?
That could be done as part of like an investigation, but we need to put some money aside for that. So the board would have to look at how they might be able to fund that investigation. It wouldn't be huge, that investigation, but yeah, we can have an initial look at it and come back and say this is how much money we need to spend.
Right.
Obviously that would, that's it now.
Rick did a report a few years ago, didn't he?
We did.
Yeah.
We did, yeah, that's what I was referring to. At the end of the day, one doesn't need to depend on the other.
No, it could be two separate. Yep, it could be two separate things, definitely. I don't think Rick's report would have covered off anything about footpaths up like that footpath that you're talking about. I don't think it was really getting into that level of detail.
Or a walkway.
It's more strategy as well, and walkways. But that's something we can have a quick look at. I can get the team to look at it and come back and say, look, to do it properly, a proper investigation around footpath would be excellent.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for.
Thank you very much.
We've got Warren and Jim, you speaking separately or together? Well, separately and together. Oh, did you want to come up as well, Jeff?
I'm here with two hats today. My first hat is for the men's shed.
Oh, okay, right.
I'm here as chairman of the Thames Community Men's Shed, which we established 2 years ago, and it was officially opened by Mayor Sandra Gowdy, and the shed has gone from strength to strength. We have 48 members currently and growing, and we are shortly going to be launching the women's shed. We have a dozen ladies who are very, very keen to become involved and do DIY projects and the like. Our problem we have is that we are in temporary premises which we rent, which we're very grateful for, but we've already exceeded the space that we've got available. And we've got the woodworking section is fully established and working extremely well, but we've got no room to expand into an engineering section.
Yeah.
And if we have more than a dozen people working there at a time, you're just about tripping over each other. So we desperately want to fundraise and build a new shed. But fundamental to that is having long-term tenure of land. So in discussions with Mayor Sandra, she had suggested the airport as a possibility. So what we're asking for is a 30 by 50 metre space on the airport on a rental, long-term rental, on the similar terms to the Harakira Club, which would be affordable for the men's shed, and would allow us then to plan and build a new bespoke shed which would fulfil our long-term goals.
Great idea. Sorry, you're asking a question of us?
Yeah, so we would like your support, basically, to allow council to be able to establish a lease with the men's shed, a long-term lease with the men's shed.
What's the process for that?
Oh, yes, so through the chair, this is as per, you may recall, we had another person a while back in public forum asking to use airfield, so it comes down to purpose and whether it fits in with the designation of the airfield. So my suggestion is that we put in the action schedule and get advice from our community facilities team around whether it's, you know, at the outset, whether it's going to meet the requirements that we have.
One of the objectives of the shed, which we're doing already, is mentoring young people. We've got 2 young men who we're mentoring at the moment in a pre-work situation. You know, they're unemployed and really struggling. And we have many members who are retired tradespeople and the like who have a huge number of skills to offer. And being highly involved with the Aero Club and the facility myself, I see a massive value to the airfield environment, having the men's shed there as an engineering resource is one thing, but also we have the ATC there who could become involved, mentoring with the shed to maybe build an aircraft or do aviation related activities. You know, the potential is huge really, because it would be a fabulous resource on the airfield.
Yeah, talking about that, am I right in thinking that is there somewhere else on the peninsula that students from a school built a
Yes,
plane?
yes, I was involved in that at Whitianga.
Right.
They're just completing their 4th aircraft now.
Wow, okay.
And that's a program working with the high school. And that's been wonderfully successful. There's been 3 kids from that. In the first year actually got aviation related employment just as a result of their experience on that program.
Yeah.
And there's certainly the opportunity to do the same thing here. So I don't know what we have to do to apply for a lease, the actual process involved.
Well, as Aaron has pointed out, it's got airport designation specifically, hasn't it? And so whether the designation is going to actually be compatible with what you're suggesting, Warren, is the first thing to ask, isn't it? And then also whether there's any precedent relating to any other aspects. I'm not quite sure about the but whether in fact that is actually on the airport designation or not. I don't think it is it? But in any event, that would be a big hurdle, just in terms of the designation and putting something on there that's part of it. Do you know what I mean? So,
Did I hear though that the council will do some investigation for us and come back to us?
Yeah,
So-
I'm just contacting the community facilities team right now just to ask them if
Okay.
that you could have the slits.
Having worked through the new designation for the airfield, I think it's actually quite a compatible activity, really. You know, it's certainly not left field.
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment to that?
Yep.
We had a meeting with the user group on the 19th of February, which Yvonne was involved with and Aaron. And the rest of it, at that stage, Yvonne said that apart from hangars with accommodation, all the other attributes of the new designation are now in place. So I would have thought that what Warren's suggesting is probably still is able to be done.
Oh, we'll seek some advice. We'll just go from there. And other aspects related to the men's shed being canvassed, in other words, overall, you know, you need a good facility in a space. I suppose the ideal for the men's shed is to build their own space.
Yes.
It is, yeah.
Yes, we've explored, we've spent the last 2 years really exploring just about every option of other alternative space.
Yes.
In Thames.
Nothing's come up.
And it's either completely inadequate or far too expensive for us to afford in the long term. And obviously it's one of those situations where if you have the opportunity to build a bespoke shed that meets your needs for the long term precisely, then you get a fabulous result. Because, you know, the whole objective of the men's shed is started and continues to be really supporting senior citizens' mental health by having a place where people can get together and actually do productive and effective things. And it's been wonderfully successful so far at that.
Oh, definitely.
We have one of our very active members lost his wife about 3 years ago, and before joining the shed was really suicidal. He was so lonely, he was beside himself, and the shed's given him a complete new lease of life. And we're getting more and more people.
No, I don't think the benefits don't need to convince anyone around this.
I was just going to say, Mr. Chair, that there has been research done to show that the mortality rate amongst men from isolation is huge. If they're not able to be connected in some way to their communities or to something meaningful, that research has been done.
So, no, we'd just desperately like your support to progress that.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Can I just, how long do you think the fundraising will take you?
Well, we've done a lot of work in that area, and we think we can fundraise, we could raise the money needed within 2 years. We're changing our status to a charitable trust, a charitable status, so that we can apply for large sums of money. There's plenty of money around, but there's two fundamentals. You've got to be charitable, a charitable organisation, and you have to have land. You can't fundraise for the land, but you can fundraise for buildings and amenities.
Okay, time's a premium, so Robin. Hello, Robin. Have I missed you with any discussion that you wanted regarding the library books and stuff like that? You put your hand up, don't you, when you're...
We can't hear you.
You're on mute.
Sign language. No, okay. Still you. Jeff, come forward.
Good morning.
I'll just chat with everyone.
I'm here to talk about the Sir Keith Park Memorial Airfield, and this is a follow-on to our presentation on the 10th of June. In terms of fundraising, we've raised $102,000 in terms of cash and approximately $43,000 in terms of donations in kind. So we're very pleased with that. We're getting towards our target. In terms of progress, everything's on track. The Hurricane, not the Spitfire that was reported in the minutes last meeting, is on the water and due in Tauranga on the 9th of August. The supporting trusses have been completed. They're in Auckland and just awaiting delivery to Thames. And we have engaged with Kopu Engineering to do all the assembly and erection and put the whole thing together for us. So we're very happy about that. We've got a huge amount of community support. And just a few of the names: A&G Price, Kopu Engineering, Reed Brothers, Port of Tauranga, Kiwi Trans, Toyota, and a number of others, placemakers and the Thames Fire Centre. And in terms of the building consent, I understand that depending on the outcome of this meeting, and payment of the consent fee that would start the technical processing. But I have to ask the question, with the local support we've had to our project so far, whether the council would waive that building consent fee. So the issues, I think, that need to be signed off probably by you today, hopefully, is the site. I think we've exercised that discussion fairly fully. An issue came up after I wrote my notes to Erin, and that is the situation with the land on which the memorial will be. And there's probably a number of options, but if the council feels that that is an issue, the proposal that we would make is that the Hauraki Area Club lease be extended by that extra 400 square metres to take account of the land on which the memorial will stand. I think over the years, actually the Area Club has been maintaining that bit of land, so the impact on the council would be minimal, if anything. But that would seem to be quite a neat way of tidying up what might be perceived to be a loose end. Landscaping, Warren's been talking to Hannah Rose. Would you like to talk about your discussions with Hannah?
Yes, I did a proposal for the memorial, a concept just to, and we've been working with Hannah Rose on the design of that. So we split the project into two phases, and phase one is the erection of the aircraft itself, and phase two is the development of the complete memorial. So we're just concentrating absolutely right now on phase one. So I've worked with Hannah Rose and her department, and we've established the location for the memorial that they're completely happy with and the orientation of it. And they've given it the green light to proceed on that basis. So our last tick is the actual building consent. Council, we asked for an exemption, but apparently the memorial doesn't strictly meet the exemption criteria, so a building consent is required. So we've applied for a building consent and we're working through that process. But otherwise we're ready to go. It's looking very, very good, very exciting. And the support's been absolutely wonderful. Kopu are doing the entire work for gratis. And A&G Price have sponsored the beams. We've had the community support has just been outstanding.
Very good, thank you.
Sorry, I've got a couple more things about.
Yes.
One of the points that came out after the last meeting was insurance, and that tied back to the ownership. And I don't think we ever thought that the council would own the memorial. We've always thought that it would be our ownership and we would be responsible for the for the insurance.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. So still waiting for some guidance as to the level of public liability that we should be undertaking. We've got cost estimates for either $1 million or $2 million worth of cover for that. We'd also like to think, because the information's gone forward to Larissa, is that the question of undergrounding those power lines on the Ngāti Mara Highway should be up for consideration. And yeah, I think that's about all about the memorial. That's really what we're here to discuss today. We'd like to think that with the completion of the memorial, we would have earned a few brownie points to have credibility to undertake some more dramatic projects at the airfield.
Jeff, do you want to make a comment about maintenance?
Well, again, it's a bit like the insurance. We never thought that the council would be responsible for the maintenance. We've been in discussion with the manufacturers of the aircraft, and they say that the requirement is minimal. It's basically as you treat a good car, it's a bit of wash occasionally. It's fiberglass exterior, so that in itself shouldn't require a great deal of attention. The one at Motab in Auckland's hardly had anything done, but it's closed down occasionally.
If it were to suffer any storm damage, for example, we would self-repair. We've got all the skill sets necessary to undertake any repair work that would be needed.
There would be an egg shed on site.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Whip it into the med shed and it'll be done in a minute.
Just one question there, is it, in fact, the best way forward is an extension of the lease with Harry Aero to that area. Does that impact on the ownership structure?
No, I don't.
The Harry Aero Club own some of the buildings that you already leased.
Yeah, yes, that's correct. It wouldn't, no, it would just be an agreement between the Circuit Park Memorial Airport thing and the Aero Club.
Sure.
You have to establish a contract agreement between the two parties.
Thanks. Any questions there?
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we move out of public forum, I've just been advised by staff from Donna that there's not a district component regarding the library books.
Sorry,
There's not a district component, a rating component for the library books, which comes as a huge surprise to me, because in the rating and finance policy, I've always understood that there's a 20% district component relating to the purchase of library books. Thames Library resolved the fact that other libraries from other areas use the books. And that was always an exacerbator principle in relationship to the written and the finance policy. So that comes as a huge surprise to me. I have to say that I've always thought, and always, they're referred in terms of a district component relating to that rating mechanism.
Do you know anything about that? No, there's no district funding for libraries, so it's not locally funded activity in the Thames board. So
there's no district component relating to the purchase of the books. No,
it's all in the Thames ratepayers.
That comes as a big surprise.
No, so Thames, just the Thames library is on the books, book budget, or any of the library costs on the Thames, for the Thames library or for the Thames ratepayers. Tyra is obviously over Tyra and the Bay library, all the costs of that are for the library.
But in terms of the district, we can borrow books from every library.
Yes, they do it in line between the libraries, yeah, so, yeah.
Well, that's the debate that previous councils have had, and most certainly the used to have a district component right. Okay. It's been removed and it's been removed in the last few years only. So, I haven't heard about it. I'm just.
Yeah, I'd be surprised because I suppose opposite to you, Stu, I've never heard about it being a district component of the district, and they've only been with me for probably 3 or 4 years, the libraries. So, so you read there was something prior to them coming across to me where there was a district component that you talked about today.
I guess the fact is you could also borrow the other ways, so someone in Thames could borrow a book from over there.
The difference is the new ones, isn't it? This is the whole point. We're not buying books at this stage, so we won't.
This is the discussion we have here now, or do we have it in 3.1?
Yes.
I just wanted to raise that, it's an issue because I'd asked Aaron to actually, and I told Barbara that, perhaps they could.
We'll need to let her know then.
So would you let them know, please,
Yeah.
Ariana, that in fact there's no district component?
Yeah, I'll let
And I made mistakes. Thank you, that's why I raised it now. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, is it possible to have the heater turned up?
It is actually turned out. It's very maximum, but apparently it's taking a long time.
Yeah, sometimes if you've got a non-responsive car, you put your foot on the accelerator an hour later. It will
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, I've never had one of those. Thank goodness.
So are there any items not on the agenda?
Oh, can you get a mover and seconder for the speak?
Thanks, Martin.
Martin.
Second, thanks, Peter. The items not on the agenda?
No.
No. Conflict of interest?
So I just want to float this one. If we are, well, when we are going to be talking about rent relief for community groups, I just have to flag the fact that I am on the committee of the Thames Music and Drama Group. I'm the Vice President. I don't stand to make any money out of the fact that they may or may not get the rent relief of $350, but I just have to declare that I'm in that committee. Whether that precludes me from any discussion or just from voting or whatever is obviously up to others to decide.
I don't think it's an issue, Martin, but you need to speak to yourself on that one.
Maybe if you see conflict, but it is entirely up to you whether you declare it or not. We do have a quorum.
So once I declare it, does that then make me ineligible to vote?
To vote, yes.
But isn't that more around if it was financial, if I was then providing services to that organisation, that they might use that money to pay me?
That's again why it's a perceived conflict of interest and
Right.
your discretion whether or not you want to declare it. I wouldn't.
So you would or you wouldn't?
Wouldn't.
Wouldn't. Oh, I'll just consider everything I've said null and void then.
It happened at Coromandel yesterday.
It's recorded now.
Oh, it's recorded now.
But yeah.
My conflict of interest on the trustee of the Thames Heritage Trust. And that's item referring some request to retain funds in 2.1. But that refers to Heritage Network, which is a different organisation. Thames Heritage Trust, so I was trying to figure out which is which. I put in a letter of resignation in November 2019 to the trust because I didn't want it to conflict with grants applications and furtherance of my ability to decide on grants, further down the track in August or September. And I've just been told that they still haven't done the deed of resignation related my trust. So I don't know whether it's effective or not effective, the fact that I resigned in November 2019. Certainly I've done it in writing from myself in terms of saying I am resigned from the trust as at the date in November. I've got the email trail there to say that now she's responded to say that she will draw up a deed of resignation and that to me in the next couple of weeks.
There's several on that one, isn't there? So you would probably be unable to dispose of that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the constitution, isn't it?
So I'll do.
Sorry, Mr Chair, is that in their constitution? Okay, I've never heard of that before.
What's that?
I was just aware that if you resign as a member of the board, it goes to the charities office and you're taken off the charities, but it must be in the constitution.
No, it's in the constitution. I'm one of the trustees and there's 4 of them.
Right.
And then 3 to be quorum. But, yeah. So I have resigned, so to speak, in terms of my own actions.
If you check the charities office, you'll find out whether you've been removed from that.
I know I have been removed.
Right. Oh, you haven't, okay.
Okay, so. Minutes for confirmation. Mover and second for those minutes for confirmation.
No, Robin?
Yep, I'm happy to move it.
There's several of them, so we're moving them all together.
I'll second. Oh, did you have a second?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any matters arising from those minutes?
Yeah. Where are things at with the speed limit? The speed limit between the north end of town and the Sailing Club as raised by the Heritage.
Well, my conversation with Sandra was that Tony Fox had made some definite progress, but what that actually converted into not quite sure. I don't know if you've heard anything, Aaron.
And I think Tony Ariana might be able to,
Yeah.
Tony reported on some sort of initiative he was
He's going to be gathering a list throughout all the boards where he will be taking any concerns around road safety and pedestrians, crossings and roundabouts. So he is looking to take that all to the Regional Transport Committee, which he holds a portfolio for. So that will be coming through soon. I'm not sure if they'll do it after the infrastructure workshops or if some of that will feed into it as well.
So somebody has been coordinating with different groups out there that are affected by the speed limit in terms of getting a response or letter from each of those different groups. It was thought that they should do that for the separate groups rather than
separate.
I think Robin and myself were going to be doing that, but I don't know that we have yet.
No,
I'm distracted by something else, I think.
You got distracted by something else.
Do you want to have a coffee next week, Martin?
Okay.
Okay, sweet.
right, because it's an important piece of background work that's required to actually get that done. But I'll coordinate that with Tony Fox to find out exactly where he's at with it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just something that staff
So-
follow up on. Peter, you've raised a good question.
So is there any feedback loop to Alan Young around it? So the issue was raised in the public forum back when
It's actually been an issue floating around for a long time. And when I spoke to Tony, it's been on the table for some time.
Yeah. And I had a call from somebody, I can't remember who it was. He said, look, well, I like all the documentation that goes back whenever. He hasn't said it. But I guess I'm just conscious that it was raised here by Alan Young back in, whenever it was, February or whenever. And is there any mechanism, has there been any feedback to Alan Young? Is there any mechanism just to say kind of just what we've heard here? Hey, there's a whole lot of background work that's now being done and Tony Fox has done blah, blah, blah.
Well, we could respond with a letter to Alan, just giving him an update of what he's trying to do.
That would be great.
Yeah.
We did indicate at the time, in public forum, that we need to be sending a letter, but we can also do what you suggested, straight more for
I did get some information from Matt Bush. Did I send it to you or did Matt? When Matt sent it to me, he CC'd you into it. It was about the, they had a community forum with NZTA about the speed limit. I did, yeah. I think when Matt sent it to me, he sent it to you at the same time.
Yeah.
Because it was information there, you know, but there was no notes taken at the meeting or the forum. According to Matt, he didn't have any notes to hand, but he thought somebody would have.
Sheree, that's a very interesting point because I know Peter French and I, probably 4 or 5 years ago, as a result of some public submissions, especially Nancy Nixon, which was heavily involved with it, did some investigative work. And the response was basically too hard basket, wasn't a priority, that type of thing from NZTA. So at that point it was.
Absolutely. Bruce says they work it on how people drive that speed.
Right, but it's been reinstigated. So we want to see where we can go now, especially with Tony Fox suggesting that in fact, it's in their ear and might get somewhere with this. So we've got to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, I think we just need to really keep pushing it constantly.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's, I don't know what the mechanism is for that, but certainly if we can get some action from the people affected in the area and find the best way through Tony of how to get that to NZTA and then just keep pushing it. And like you say, if we can produce some sort of a trail of what's happened over the last X number of years and say, look, this hasn't been a priority for 5 years or 8 years or however long, come on, time to, yeah.
Do you want me to send it to you again?
I have it here.
Okay.
Yes, so you said that he said previous, I think it was email response from ZTA, but as you said, confirming that he didn't have notes on a meeting with the community. I'm not sure when that was.
So when I spoke to him, it was the day before he left. Yes. That was the problem, is when I spoke to Matt, the next day he was leaving council. He's actually gone to work for NZG.
That's right.
But he said to me he didn't have any notes to hand of the meeting.
No, it doesn't appear to when the meeting was held either, so.
But you were probably at that meeting, straight with Peter.
Yeah, I call it. And I'm just sort of wondering whether he's outside of it now, moved from. Sam. Whether Sam would have some knowledge about it.
And I mean, on the face of it, I'm not a traffic engineer, but on the face of it, it's not like we're asking for, over bridges and on and off ramps and any sort of, massive building engineering stuff. Yes, it would be great to have a pedestrian crossing, but that's quite a windy, with corners and stuff, and I don't know necessarily where the pedestrian crossing would need to go, maybe by the Coronary Bay car park. But yeah, to my mind, it's getting the thing gazetted about the change in the speed limit, changing the road signs, and maybe some traffic calming stuff. But it's not like it's going to be a multi-million-dollar project or anything. It just seems it could be really easily done, but that might just be me being naive.
Yes, so they have elections that they do.
Yeah.
They can get
Some things can get through quickly, but whether we have to have someone getting seriously injured before it happens. So here's Bruce, we can ask him.
Priority list.
That's right.
Talking about the speed limits.
Yes, at Coronary.
Lots of work.
Yeah, just doing, so team are doing the work, the work's been done around that, so yeah, was there anything specific there, or did you?
Well, I just recall, when Peter was here, French.
Yes.
And myself, we had a discussion with Matt.
Yes.
Or Sam, I'm not sure where it led to.
Okay.
And I thought that there was an application made to TCDC.
Yeah.
Regarding that, and it was just on the low list of priority.
Yeah.
And that's where it all ended up. And so at the end of the day, it's not really track record there. But,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Bruce, I mean, really for now too,
Yes, so Tony Fox, as our representative on the regional transport committee, he's pretty focused on that. I think from memory, if I remember correctly, at the last council meeting, he was saying about each board getting their priorities around their areas to him around speed limits and other issues that he could deal with around NZTA. So when he's at that table, he can advocate on behalf of our council in each of the board areas to say, look, for Thames, one of the key priorities is Coronary Bay and getting the speed limit changed in Coronary Bay and decreased, so all that kind of stuff. So yeah, he definitely talked about that at the last council meeting. It's nodding, so I must remember.
So basically, it's got no further from that.
Yeah, the Coronary one is the state highway, so it's to go through the transport.
NZTA like to do things in a consistent manner, and they've got a lot of work going on across the country around a regional and a nationwide speed management guide and how you make the decisions around speed limits and how you reduce the way to do it, and so try and do it as a consistent approach across the region and the country. So what that means is that's a good way to do things, but often that has a delay because it takes longer to wait for all that stuff to be replaced before they do it.
I just really struggle with, and probably we should wrap this conversation up, but I just really struggle with the idea of a consistent approach to speed limits around the country. It's kind of like, well, there's a whole lot of individual things. But anyway, I don't know.
So what that means is that when you cross the boundary from, say, our district to the next district, there's not suddenly a whole range of different speeds. So we might say, look, we love everyone driving at 30, let's make everything 30 here. You know what I mean? And then you go across to the HTC, and something's not the same, you know what I mean? So You need it to feel, because the thing is, you're also relying, as I mentioned before, we talked about the Current Valley, you need the road and the speed environment to feel consistent, like it matches the speed, the posted speed limit feels like the same limit as what it should be, the speed environment. So you need those to be consistent. And so what you don't want is you don't want one district to be doing that and another district to be having speed limits that are much lower than the posted limits, much lower than the speed environment. Then you get a ticket and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this didn't feel at all like it was the last district I just passed through. So.
But then they've done it in Auckland, Wellington and the CBD.
Yes,
State highway.
Yeah, that's we are taught to say highway, but you know, again, they would say that they've got the information to show that that's the environment. There's a lot of pedestrians, you know, and things that they've got the data and speed environment feels slow enough to have a posted 30k limit. Well, that remains to be seen, I suppose. We'll see.
So can I just say one thing? When you hold a community forum or a public meeting or whatever, and NZTA is involved in that, where is the mindset coming out of it? What was the agenda? Unholding that. What did they say?
Yeah.
Because if Matt didn't have it, who's got it?
So I'm guessing, I don't quite know.
Because they wanted to make a decision.
Yeah, I don't 100% about what strategy, whether there was a public forum or anything, whether it was just a meeting that was held.
I think it was a casual meeting, was it? But nonetheless,
It should mean some
there
notes.
should be some results.
To achieve.
Yeah, not sure. Yeah, not sure. But it was something on the public forum. There needs to be a record, public record. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But yeah, Tony Fox is the man in the hot seat around transportation. So yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is something must be involved with NZTA. That's all.
Yeah, and we'd have to see if we could pull anything out straight, but I would imagine that that NZTA would have said that the speed environment doesn't support the decrease, and that's why it didn't happen at that stage. Now, whether things have changed since then, you know, like things do change over time, so.
So then they did say they would like to see it, but then the argument is.
Because otherwise we're going over the whole round, you know, if we've already been through that discussion and, yeah.
So there's still good to add.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. So that's your question.
I think we're going to have a little simple.
Very good.
Robin, did you want to say something?
You're muted.
Can't hear you.
Don't know sign language, but.
No, she's not muted, but she will just type it.
No.
Send us a letter, Robin.
She's just leaving the conversation now.
It's your internet connection.
Yeah.
It runs along Curraway Road.
Okay. No, can you hear me now? I'm going to leave the video off for a bit, but can you hear me? Fantastic.
Yes.
But ironically, what I was going to say is when there's more than one person talking, everybody gets lost. You can't hear what's going on. So if you guys could be mindful of that, because I'm really mindful that people watch these videos and I think, God, they've been putting up with a lot. So if you wouldn't mind trying really hard to just talk one at a time, that would be absolutely ace. Thank you.
So one suggestion there would be is just ask questions through the chair. Just go through the chair when you actually want to ask something. That'd be great. Thank you.
Through the chair, can we have a comfort stop?
You can. Yeah. Have a comfort stop. We'll adjourn for 10 minutes.